with the deck, has to spend a lot of time counting lethal, doesn't really understand how to dump cards and get stuff into outcast position, all the basic stuff. Then there's the player who is fine with all of those basics, but kind of struggles to get creative in the games where they don't just draw the nuts. And then there's like no hands gamer level of OTK Demon Hunter, right? Frozen level of OTK Demon Hunter, where even in games that look unwinnable, they find some ridiculous win condition with winning with tempo Moargs or finding something from Illidari studies to do something unexpected because Star Student or a Glide or something ridiculous to get themselves out of the game. So I really enjoy the deck. I do hope that it has another starring performance here, but it does mean that we are finally ready to get into game number 1 of our matchup. It is going to be the All-Americas clash between CaelesLuna and CaelesLuna, and it's going to be Rush Warrior versus Rush Warrior, both having Gnarg in the opening, TJ.
Noise. Noise. And you forgot one level of OTK Demon Hunter, and that is killinallday OTK Demon Hunter. Level 4. All right. So
it was really, really hard to avoid calling the level 0 level of OTK Demon Hunter Eddie level, but I guess I'll just throw that in there since it's
Eddie level.
The Americas, yeah.
Eddie level. Yeah. All right.
Where you miss lethal by 32 or something.
Yeah. And then you act confused. My opponent should be dead. I played Ilganov with a bunch of cards. All right. Fast and Furious start to Rush Warrior Mirror. Rush Warrior Mirror is kind of interesting. One player usually establishes themselves as the aggressor.
Yes.
But it's all about the swing turns in the mid game. And a lot of times those swing turns are off the back of conditioning. And right now, CaelesLuna on the coin. Maybe slightly behind on board, right? It's just a Prey leader. Got an in-person Gnarg coming out the next turn. But the resources to be able to make those pretty big swing turns. Already has Ringmaster Watley, conditioning, Overlord Runback. It's just about not taking too much damage in the interim.
Yeah, and you saw him right from the mulligan. I believe it was a 3-keep, but it was a very nice-looking 3-keep, but I think the number one concern for CaelesLuna was, I'm not mulliganing for conditioning with this 3-keep, but then the conditioning just came into that one mulligan slot. Big thumbs up from CaelesLuna. And now, I spent that entire turn just kind of evaluating the curve that he was going to be playing out here, and it looks very much like his turns are spoken for until at least, turn 7, turn 8 with this hand. So I do respect just dropping down the conditioning there on turn 2 just to get those minor buffs out. I think also influenced by the fact that he has Runthak in hand to kind of bridge that gap between a rank 1 conditioning and a rank 2 conditioning.
Yeah, that hand spells to me, all right, I'm winning the long game. Have the resources, have the stats. Just need to not fall too far behind. And so, yeah, I agree. The conditioning seems necessary in that position. CaelesLuna just going with a double athletic studies turn. Not particularly powerful as far as tempo is concerned, but could be over the course of the next few turns. Finds Tent Trasher and the Fishy Flyer. Fishy Flyer I find to be a little bit too expensive, but the one benefit is that it is a separate type for Tent Trasher to be discounted. So Killen could find an opportunity, especially with a demon on the board, to make Tent Trasher cheap and maybe get both those down in the same turn.
Yeah, both players really hitting some of the highest possible tempo starts here, and both players having Gnarg into Tent Trasher, which is generally what you want to be doing. Gnarg being in play as a demon and then being kind of guaranteed to stick to the board for at least one turn while you have control. Normally allows you to have some very high tempo starts with the Tent Trasher. You saw there CaelesLuna had that play available with Coin Tent Trasher, but just chose to go with the Bloodsworn instead.
Now things are going to get awkward for killinallday. It appears got a double athletic studies discount, so can't be fooled by the discount and the fact that it may appear that you can play more cards in a single turn than is possible. But being able to get the Tent Trasher down, finds a buff, stage dive buff Tent Trasher. Ooh, is right.
This Runthak, though, is immediately insane. It is buffed once from the rank 1 conditioning, so he could just go ahead and trade through very cleanly with the 3/7, but I think he is going to play it the greedy way instead, ripping the Watley first to get maximum hand buffs going with that Overlord Runthak on the following turn.
Yeah, this is going to be quite a powerful mid game for CaelesLuna. Kind of tell right off the bat, 3 keep and then picking up conditioning off the top. That's pretty much ideal, especially when you're talking about the Rush Warrior mirror. And now pretty much anything that Killen plays, CaelesLuna will be able to answer with Run Attack and then have a massively buffed hand, which is going to be hard for killinallday to deal with. The one card that he does have that might be able to do something is Blademaster Samuro, but it's not buffed currently. killinallday played a Parade Leader on turn 2, so only has 1 left in the deck is the only possible way to buff. And we're talking about conditioning minions, or at least 1 more, right? And then Overlord Run Attack buffed. Blademaster Samuro might be in a position where it won't even touch the health of these minions.
Yep. It is the one thing that you kind of have to continue to play around when you get ahead in this matchup. It is very snowball-y. Generally, if you get ahead by more than 1 minion, you can snowball that to a victory and just curve out and start pushing damage with Troublemakers, finish the game with Alexstrasza. The one fear that you generally have is Blademaster Samuro coming back the other way, which, as you said, CaelesLuna currently does not have much fear of, because there is only really 1 buffed minion in the hand, which could be a 3-attack minion coming off the stage dive. On top of which, killinallday doesn't really have enough cards to be threatening like Parade Leader, Playmaker plus Bumper Car shenanigans either, which is the only other real way you can start to fight back against some of these enormous boards. So I think unless Killen picks up a nice rank 2 conditioning or something off the top in the very near future, it's going to be really tough to even make CaelesLuna scared to just make the most aggressive play that he can every single turn, right?
Yeah, this is a rough spot. Rough spot. I've had arena hands better than this. Actually, I don't know if that's true. It's all subjective, right?
I do know that you do at least play arena. I keep signing into Americas and just seeing TJ playing arena. I was like, what are you doing? Who plays arena? What's wrong with you?
I gotta camp my high rank.
Oh, I see. Okay, fair enough.
I'm like 500 legend. I've stuck in better than that.
Yo, insane.
I want my 11 stars next season.
10 Trasher coming down here, which is actually really good news for CaelesLuna. It doesn't look so immediately because it is a pretty powerful board clear on the other side, but the fantastic news here is that that is the buffed minion out of hand for killinallday. So now CaelesLuna has basically 0 fear of anything from killinallday's hand. There is basically nothing that any given 5-card warrior hand can do against this from CaelesLuna.
Just gives a thumbs up. I mean, any player that's experienced in Rush Warrior mirrors knows that this feels like it's essentially game over.
Yes.
CaelesLuna also has knowledge of the Spectral Flyer in hand, knows that there's really not many combos of things that Killen could even do. I mean, right now, killinallday has to go to great lengths just to answer the Run Attack on board, and it's already done a lot of damage with the buffs in the hand, and it's not going to stop there. A little bit awkward that these are 2/2s and not 3/3s. Parade Leader could make up for that. And the mana expenditure is also a little bit awkward, but I think this is could just be like Sword Eater, Parade Leader, and a Rider. Could dig for something with Athletic Studies, just because why not? It's going to make whatever rush minion you play this turn make up for the mana expenditure for the Athletic Studies anyway.
Yes. I think I prefer just going wide with the Dark Moon Riders here as opposed to committing a Parade Leader, because the killinallday's had a slow hand, right? Nothing really happening, so I think Troublemaker is high on the list of cards that you would give to your opponent there. It feels like throwing out a Parade Leader to just get potentially sniped by one of the 3/3 tokens is a little unnecessary, but having now found Bumper Car, is there anything more ambitious that CaelesLuna can immediately do this turn instead of playing the Sword Eater?
Parade Leader Bumper Cars is 3, but then 10 Trasher would still cost 4 because the Athletic Studies buff.
That's right.
So can't quite do that. We're just gonna set it up for the future, I guess.
Oh,
this
my mistake.
Because the weapon, the Playmaker.
Yes, and I wasn't accounting for the fact that the Parade Leader has 4 health from the buff anyway, which makes everything I said during that turn complete nonsense, because it makes it almost strictly superior to have it on the board instead of a Dark Moon Rider, because if 2 3/3s get soaked up by this Parade Leader, I think you're happy with that scenario in this position.
Mm-hmm.
This also means that CaelesLuna now starts this turn with the Parade Leader preloaded, which means that killing the Troublemaker on the other side is pretty trivial with the Bumper Car and Dark Moon Riders that he already has available. You can just continue to push damage from that point.
Also, unload a Tent Trasher here, which is a 7/7. It was in the hand for the conditioning and the Runtak.
That's right.
So, quite the powerful turn.
So no stage dives this turn means I assume Luna is just going to play 1 and hero power here. No, she's going to fully max out with the 3 Dark Moon Riders instead. I guess this allows him to just have maximum power on board and then keep the Tent Trasher healthy, which does make sense.
Yep. Just ship it all. Yep. And that should lock things up. I believe killinallday has seen... has it been both Tent Trashers and the Ringmaster Watley Dragon was Alexstrasza, so he should know that Alexstrasza is there.
Yep.
And it doesn't look like there's a way out here.
Yeah, he should also know that he just doesn't really have any way to deal with like the 9/7 that's on the board before he even gets concerned about Alexstrasza in hand. So that is going to be a very straightforward game 1 for CaelesLuna. Remember, CaelesLuna in prime position to be promoted to an America's GM, but because of the turbulent nature of America's GM promotion, not as guaranteed as someone like Gabby would be in the European region with the masses of points that Gabby has to his name. So another strong performance here from CaelesLuna will be certainly what he's looking for, and that's a great way to start.
Yeah, the first game. Many more games left to play to get a good start, but one game at a time. That should be every player's mantra. These Masters Tours, because they can be grueling. Endurance is key, because there's a lot of Hearthstone to be played, and many of these players already play Hearthstone that much, but Ladder's a much different beast. Even Master Tour qualifiers are a much different beast than the Master Tour themselves, because that's what you've been working for, so it just feels more important, and that's because it is. So, all right. Moving on to one of the next games here. Still good matchups left for killinallday's Rush Warrior. This is kind of dynamic we saw a lot over the last couple weeks of Grandmasters and going into playoffs. Rush Warrior was a key part of many players' lineups, and so was Miracle Rogue, which is the case for this best of 5. And you queue Rush Warrior first because it's got a decent spread of matchups, and then if you lose the mirror, a lot of times you're still going to be able to find a win against Miracle Rogue in the least, or OTK Demon Hunter, which just playing a big thing every turn can sometimes get the job done. And then many of these lists are including Mutinous as well, which can also just be an instant win once it's played.
Yeah, I think matchup has improved due to the addition of Mutinous. This is actually a matchup I really enjoyed playing as the OTK Demon Hunter. I'm not going to go and say it was massively favored for the Demon Hunter, but I do think it was a very interesting matchup to play because you can afford to be extremely greedy with your health total a lot of the time. As OTK Demon Hunter, like Rush Warrior will build up these enormous boards, and you're very scared of them, but you're at 30 health and there's like 18 damage in play. But the thing is, a lot of the time you can just take that 18 damage because they're not going to deal 12 from hand. They're not going to burst you and kill you. And if you can milk that one extra turn out and then have that huge burst heal on the following turn, I think that's generally a pretty good route to victory. But I do like your point about the Rogue Rush Warrior lineup, because I think we have seen that a lot where it's been either the Rogue or the Warrior struggling to get out of the series, and more often than not it is the Rogue, because if those two decks come head to head, the Warrior has such a good matchup against Rogue that generally the Rogue can tend to get a little bit stuck in the series. But it's just kind of the nature of the two decks, right, is that they both have just a bunch of like 52% matchups against the rest of the field. So it's not like they have these big blowout matchups where they can get out of series easily, and because of the nature of the head to head, which is what we're about to see right now with killinallday, as you said, just continuing to queue the Rush Warrior. It does seem like both Rush Warriors are going to get out of this series very quickly, as this is an extremely strong matchup for Warrior.
Yep. Not unwinnable from the Rogue side by any means, but taking a look at the actual deck list that you just saw there from CaelesLuna, pretty standard. The only difference is A lot of times you'll see 2 Guardian Og Merchants. CaelesLuna opting to run 1 Penflinger, 1 Guardian Og Merchant, which does offer a little bit more of like flexible board control, which could help the matchup a little bit against Rush Warrior, since it is all about the board. Sometimes it can be about life total too. Rogue doesn't really have ways to protect their life total, and so even if you manage to take back the board at some point in the game, if you've just taken too much damage from like weapon swings in the early game minions, you could still end up losing to Alexstrasza like on 9. So we'll see if that makes a difference, but other than that, pretty standard Miracle Rogue. Nothing really crazy. The Cold Neophytes definitely will not help. They might help in ever so slightly, but they're for literally every other deck in the metagame, and not necessarily for Rush Warrior.
Yes. Which honestly I think is one of the interesting niches that Rush Warrior can find, is that we kind of get stuck in these metas sometimes where everyone looks at all the decks that are being played, like during the period where it's just like Mage Priest in 100% of lineups, and everyone was like, okay, 2 Cult Neophytes, 2 Ogre-Mancers, every deck, let's go. And then Rush Warrior just came along and said, hey, I play like 0 relevant spells, I'm just going to play minions and just beat you up for playing understated minions on curve. So it is a little interesting spoiler that the Rush Warrior can play. I do like it, but in general, it has so many advantages in this matchup. It will always look like there is a window for the Rogue, but there very often isn't. But it is winnable, as you say, but this is not really looking like the kind of start that's going to get there for the Rogue.
No, usually you have to have a pretty fast and furious opening.
Yes.
Usually off the back of an efficient Octobot, excuse me. In order to have a chance, because a lot of times what it feels like is you do all this work to like draw cards and build up this board, but then it's so easy for Rush Warrior to just kind of overpower you in the mid game.
Yep.
And that's kind of where you lose your footing in the matchup, is you spend all this work in the early game trying to craft this board, and then it just gets swept up by a bunch of little rushers, and then it does feel like Rush Warrior is just playing a big thing every turn, and a lot of times as Rogue you have to have setup turns, which in this matchup it doesn't seem like you can afford to have.
I do like this answer from CaelesLuna, though, just trying to buy some time. Can't afford to be falling behind massively in the early game. Uses a Wicked Stab, which is a huge resource, of course, but it preserves the Brain Freeze in hand, which does now still allow for maximum field contact potential. And I was going to bring this up when you were talking about how, Penflinger might serve as a little bit of extra board control. I find that even if you are running Penflinger in Rogue, it's very rarely massively beneficial for extra board control. It's more so that you just get this like reliable source of card draw on your field contact turns, right? Like your field contact turn basically can't brick because you have Penflinger in your hand, and you're able to just replay it multiple times. If you hit Shadow Step, you get to Shadow Step something else, and then your Penflinger can come down alongside it, and you end up drawing a million cards. And I think that's ideally what Luna will be trying to set up for here. But again, you mentioned it earlier, it's that Octobot that is being missed here, which could have made this possible. Ideally, this turn already, Luna would have been drawing 5 or 6 cards, right? With a good start from this Rogue hand.
So many.
Yeah, turn 4. Mm-hmm. That's right.
I mean, I wish I was joking, but I'm just not.
No, I know you're not. That's what's crazy.
Yeah.
This deck can even do that. And the crazy thing about Rush Warrior is that even though sometimes you can have those aggressive starts where you go like Gnarg into Parade Leader sticks, you just jam up bumper cars, then just everything lives and you kill them. But you can afford to just play this a little bit slowly, especially with the type of hand that killinallday has, where he has conditioning.
CaelesLuna, however, on the other side, giving the hard dagger up pass. Clearly not enthralled with the way this game is going so far. And yeah, killinallday. It's going to coin out the Watley, fill up the hand. This curves into conditioning on the following turn. This is the one turn where the much maligned Cult Neophyte could have actually had an impact on the game, but CaelesLuna does not even have that luxury available to him. And yeah, I think you see the roll of the eyes starting to come out here. I think he knows that this one is doomed.
There's always a way out. There's always a way out. Kazakus jumped out at me at first, but it's a little bit awkward with the mana expenditure. and Kazakis could be used for quite a big swing. Obviously, it's finding time to spend 4 mana on it might be difficult, but with double field contact in hand, no Octobot, no discounts available, this is probably a good turn to just go field contact, Foxy Fraud, and then most likely Brain Freeze. Pick up off the top could be like Swindle, in which case you'd go for that. Nessa Vankleaf is interesting. It would give a Ringmaster Watley, which would then pull just Alexstrasza?
Alexstrasza's already in hand.
Oh, no. Okay, you're right.
It's just a 2/3, right? It's
anything.
It's the only reason it's on the board. It's just an extra 2/3 this turn, which CaelesLuna is kind of viewing as more important than the Brain Freeze. It's close because the Brain Freeze does, of course, lock out the minion on the other side, but you are playing against Rush Warrior, so the idea that your minions will live because you freeze the attacking minion in play, I think is kind of ambitious. So I kind of like just getting the extra 2/3 down on board, cheating the most mana as well with the Foxy Fraud, and having that Brain Freeze now available for second field contact if need be. Not saying any of this is going to work, not saying that CaelesLuna is not dead this game, because he is, but I do like the play.
It will pull an Octobot.
That's true. Yeah, it's very true about that. You did it, Teach. Well done.
Found it. I was like, Foxy Frauds.
Foxy Fraud's a little bit pirate? Yeah, okay.
Definitely not a beast because...
Prize Plunderer is a pirate, TJ. We're so stupid.
Oh, it is a pirate.
What leads the nuts? Yeah. What leads the nuts?
Yeah. Why, just skip right over that. The weird times where that knowledge is actually useful. All right. So, now, that's not a terrible hand because Octobot, a way to activate it, and then some swing potential with Kazakis, like a really good Kazakis call, but I worry that CaelesLuna has already fallen too far behind. This play took, or this series of plays took a lot of setup time, and
yes, agreed.
killinallday has also been setting up just in a much bigger way. His cards won't become cheaper, but they become bigger. And in the age-old battle of bigger versus cheaper, bigger probably wins. I don't know.
Is that true? Yes. Famously,
no, it's not.
Famously and historically, Druid just always beats Zoo, right? Like, that's how that works.
Made me
I can feel the cogs in TJ's mind just turning, looking for the comeback, searching for the comeback.
I'm not Raven.
All right, good enough. Yeah.
Don't bully.
Just pull on my heartstrings. That's fair. But yeah, I think the big problem here for Luna is that he has to win board not once, but at least twice at this point, because there's already the buffed Blademaster Samuro in hand for killinallday. So even if he does have one big swing turn with, like, say he gets the discount with Efficient Octobot, maybe just takes care of the 7/4 this turn, just winning the board with one big field contact Prize Plunderer turn isn't actually going to achieve anything because it just gets deleted by Blademaster Samurai on the following turn. Okay, ropes are burning, and there is still a lot of things that need to be done here from CaelesLuna, with a Penflinger still popping off as well, which can potentially get in the way.
Muzzle their magic.
All right.
Okay. This is going to be a very cheap hand. There's a free Octobot with another Penflinger, easy activator. Lots of cheap Battlecry minions in hand as well. killinallday probably not sweating though. He's got a buff Blademaster Shamrow. He's all right.
Yeah, he's also just got straight up 10 damage that can ship face this turn, first and foremost.
With a Sword Eater as well, which could be even more. In fact, that's a nice clean 13. killinallday can CaelesLuna is 8, and then just play board control for the rest of the game. Only have to worry about potential lifesteal from Kazakis. Or defensive Alexstrasza. But if you have an Alexstrasza on the board and your opponent defensive Alexstrazas, it's useless.
Yeah, and we're also just straight back in that same position from the previous game, where before we even start worrying about Alexstrasza, you kind of have to deal with this, 21 damage that's on the board on the other side as well for CaelesLuna's turn.
Easy. There's a Prize Plunderer and a Shadow Step. That clears the board.
kind of does. This is a really awkward turn to play here. You might end up using Prize Plunderer once to proc. Because the interesting thing here is if you hold Shadow Step until after your Kazakus gets super cheap, you can end up doing some disgusting things with Shadow Step Golems, which kind of feels like the power level you might actually need at this point.
I mean, this is going to be, this has the potential to be a big pop-off turn. There's second prize.
Okay. He finds second Prize Plunderer, which is a much bigger deal. Now he should be able to take care of most of this board just with Prize Plunderers and Shadow Step. This is the problem though, right? Like you can kind of see the win condition here where the Prize Plunderers will pick this board apart, and then he'll have Kazakus into like buff Golem as a follow-up to potentially be the game winner. But there's a spoiler to be played on the other side because killinallday can basically just delete any board CaelesLuna plays here.
I'm looking for a
Yeah.
good mercenary.
I'm not even sure what the hope is. Okay, it is a 5-mana Golem.
It is 5, yeah.
Didn't hit lifesteal though, from what I saw.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to dump that second Shadow Step on the Prize Plunder. That's no more steps. I mean, a crazy turn if you look at it in a vacuum. Tons of cards drawn, tons of cards played, a massive board cleared, but being at 8 health means killinallday, Alexstrasza loaded up and ready next turn, just has to play defensively here. And that's a 3/8 Blade Master Samuro.
Yes, exactly.
That's as defensive as he's got to be.
It really is.
Calls him
yeah.
as I sees him.
The one thing that you do have to worry about a little bit, I suppose, is you know that your opponent has a ludicrously cheap hand right now. So if you were to purely just set up, like say you just cleared the board and played nothing, right? I'm not even sure what that play looks like for Rush Warrior. Then you're potentially losing to defensive Alexstrasza from CaelesLuna, right? Where he just gets to heal out of range and then just develop an 8/8 and be ahead of the game. But there's no real play that Rush Warrior makes that leaves them in that situation. This is what a Rush Warrior board clear looks like, right? Like you can't just dump defensive Alexstrasza into this because you will still just be dead.
And that's the case. CaelesLuna is just dead unless that Golem is something that I didn't even see the options for.
It is Rush +2/+2, so it is nothing particularly helpful here.
Okay. So if you assume Alexstrasza is not in hand, which I think the Ringmaster Watley pulled 10 Trasher, if I'm not mistaken.
So you look for like Flurry or something off the One Thief here, and then you do have the 5/5 Rush that can come down, buff your board at the end of this. Penflinger can still take care of the 3/1 if need be.
Yeah. You also kind of have to set up some kind of counter-offensive, just because you can't just hope that Alexstrasza's not in the hand and then hope that their hand has 0 reload. Shadow Step.
Well played.
There is no way this turn gets finished. There is no way, TJ. Yeah, okay, there we go.
All right, tied series, and I feel like this just happens so often. It's like, all right, Rush Warrior Mirror game 1. Somebody wins, doesn't matter who, because in the next game they're going to queue Miracle Rogue and lose. And then it's tied. And then Rush Warrior has a win. In the standard lineup, I guess, for the tournament, the one that we're probably going to be seeing be the most popular. I feel like that's going to be happening a lot. But now it comes down to the Miracle Rogues on both sides and the OTP Demon Hunters on both sides, which, at least from the Miracle Rogue perspective, is a lot more involved of a mirror matchup, right? It's still swingy like the Rush Warrior mirror, but there's also many different ways that you can go about it, and I do think it's one of the harder mirror matches to play, assuming like equal strength of hands or near equal strength of hands on both sides.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's also, the Rogue Mirror though is also, you know, a mirror match with potential to not have equal power level of hands on the others on each side, which can make it very simple to play from both perspectives, because one player can't really throw hard enough to lose, and one player can't play well enough to win. If the quality of hands can't be overcome on either side. But I also think the non-mirror matchup available here is one of the most interesting ones that we have in the metagame, with Rogue going up against Demon Hunter, because that's a matchup you'll hear differing opinions on from different camps, from different practice groups, from different players, from the Demon Hunter specialists, from the Rogue specialists. Really does come down to the Cult Neophyte now being a kind of staple card in Rogue, which can do so much damage to Demon Hunter's game plan and how they curve out, that I think a matchup that a lot of people thought was fairly free for Demon Hunter early on has kind of developed into a matchup that a lot of people will now argue is Rogue favored.
Crazy subtle. I'm actually like right in the middle of the fence. It's like, you know, if you were to try to imagine a visual of my thoughts on Rogue versus Demon Hunter, it would be like if someone took a picture right as I was in the middle of jumping over a fence. And the picture's blurry enough to where you can't quite see in which direction I'm jumping.
What do you think is the maximum height of fence that you can jump over, TJ?
It's a creative question. I feel like this is a job interview.
If our
job interview for a fence building company.
Fence. Yeah, exactly.
Let's see. How tall am I? I'm like 6'2", so I don't know. I'm gonna play it safe here. 2 feet.
Nice. Okay.
I can confidently clear a 2-foot fence.
Ambitious as always. We are going to see the matchup that I was talking about, though. Demon Hunter looks like it's going to be queuing into the Rogue. There is an Ooze being played in the Demon Hunter, which is becoming more and more common, primarily because Control Warrior has kind of found its way into the metagame. And while at first thought, you know, I was kind of the initial opinion that Bulwark was not a beatable card for OTK Demon Hunter in a lot of positions. I have softened on that a lot, primarily because I saw it happen with Blythe, and then I've kind of experimented with a few routes through the game. But the combination of Bulwark and Mutinous and the other potential disruption of like a Vol'jin that they might have in their deck as well can mount up to be too difficult to beat. So I think having that Ooze in the deck is a card that's fairly harmless to carry in Demon Hunter, because worst case scenario, it's a 2-mana 3/2 that you can just get out of your hand anyway, which makes it a lot better than some other cards that could get trapped in there. I think it's a reasonable tech card to have, especially for tournament play.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You already have so much spell damage redundancy in the deck.
Yeah.
It's like players at the beginning of the set just like built OTK Demon Hunter and there was 4 card slots left. And then it's like, okay, search for card draw. I don't really like any of these. Some people do, though, and they put in acrobatics. And then, all right, search spell damage. Ethereal Og Merchant? Why not? So, the second one is a lot of times unnecessary. And so I as well like to use... As you mentioned, Ethereal Og Merchant, the first one is usually like played on 1 to dump a card from hand. So there's not much of a difference if Acidic Swamp Ooze just being played on 2 instead. All right, get into it. CaelesLuna, yeah, not keeping any of those. Looking for a Skull and Outcast.
That is, TJ, your boy has got the juice. Discount plus Jandis,
5-drop.
plus coin. It is now, yeah. You're right. It's a 5-drop that's going to summon 2 5-drops. He is going to unnerf his Jandis real quick here.
Now that's a 5-drop, and that's a 5-drop, and that's a 5-drop. All right.
Spectral Sight picked up off the Chaos Strike for CaelesLuna. None of the real power cards in hand just yet, but also none of the annoying cards in hand. So his hand is still fairly fluid at this point. Even that Moarg is not a big deal because he can cheat it to the right using Philosophy and then dump the original Moarg out of hand. So Caelus will be looking fine, just playing from the top of his deck as this goes along. But killinallday here, this one is going to go real quick because now there's even the opportunity to play Jandis this turn, right? If he really wanted to.
That's an upgrade. Probably.
Is that really necessary?
I mean, would it be a bad thing? It would work, right? You could go coin Prize Plunderer first, then Shadow Step the Octobot, then play the Org Merchant, which would cost 0, and then you would be left with 4 mana and a 4-mana Jandis in your hand after doing all of that.
Yes. I think you could just do it in any order, right? Because you'd play Guardian Org Merchant, Shadow Step Octobot, that'd be 3. So you could activate it that way as well. It'd take more damage, so coin would be correct. Right? But
I grow impatient.
the problem with this hand that I see from Killen is that there's nothing else.
Yes.
It's just burn in the hand outside of that.
And because of that, I do like going a turn slower to preserve the Shadow Step, right? Because this allows him to Shadow Step the Jandis as opposed to Shadow Stepping the Octobot, which means he doesn't just lose the game to like one big spell damage Immolation Aura, right? Which is if he went completely all in with this hand, used the Shadow Step and just jam Jandis, and there was just like Moarg Immolation Aura in his opponent's hand, he would kind of be conceding at that point. So I like having the Shadow Step available for multiple Jandises here.
Yep. And it ain't getting better, Salo. Another Prize Plunderer picked up. Not a great card in the matchup. Not many minutes to kill. Oh, and by Rustwicks!
We go over to VAR for the 5-drop review. TJ, is that a 5-drop?
Envoy Rustwicks? That's a thumbs up. That's a 5-drop. Rusteed Raider? While technically a 5-drop, that is not a 5-drop.
killinallday temporarily point his Prize Plunderer at his Rusteed Raider? Was there any reason why he did? Was that just a misclick? Was he just trying to pick up the shadows? Like, what happened there? I'm very confused.
Mind game. Mind games.
He pointed at the illusion.
You're just so naive.
Okay.
So naive. You can't even begin to understand the levels of mind games and brilliance that killinallday exudes every time he steps foot onto the Hearthstone battlefield. How dare you?
Demons? Demons.
All right, what are we picking here? There's already 2 Moargs.
Time grows short.
I think you just cycle. I-Beam, not much healing in the hand. It was Moargs. Maybe you can use it to bounce back up your life total. But I think CaelesLuna just needs to try and hit some more card draw. Good thing is, the Skull will be relatively easy to get in outcast position. There's 2 incredibly dumpable cards in Moarg and Immolation Aura on the left. That'll tuck the Skull nice and tightly into that far left outcast spot. Just probably worried about may take too much damage in the intro, not having time. Ugh.
Yeah.
It's a blessing and a curse. The blessing is that it's really easy to choose which one to put the illusion on. The curse is it's a 1/1.
The curse is your minion sucks. Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough choice for Luna on the previous turn. I was kind of sat in silence trying to work it out. Like, I really wanted the I-Beam because you kind of need the I-Beam for this turn that you're about to play, ideally, right? Like, you feel like Moarg, Immolation, and I-Beam could have been enough to clear most boards. But because the I-Beam would have just slid over out of outcast position, it wasn't going to work out anyway. So I think just by process of elimination, Luna just ended up on the cycle instead, which worked out very well. That's the one thing with this card draw, with this deck, where even if you're starved of card draw, if you draw one card, that might hit more card draw, and that one card that you drew can end up just snowballing through your deck very quickly, which is kind of what's ended up happening here with the Sigil Runner hitting the Blood Mage Thalnos and so on.
Alas, poor
Big sigh of relief from Luna as he gets a basically free turn here just to rip Skull. And we talked about it, right? How the hand had Jandis but didn't really have anything else going on. I think Luna has been suitably greedy here to say that he's willing to take a little bit of damage from the first Jandis in order to preserve that Immolation Aura for the big clear of the second Jandis coming down as well. And now Luna finds himself in a much better position than if he'd panicked a little bit and pulled the trigger on that first clear.
Yeah. Not often that you get to see you clear a board and then a completely dead turn from Rogue, but that is quite nice. killinallday does find Mancrick and the Vanessa does get a Skull, but again, it's like hard to play. Like, you'd just rather be developing instead of trying to acquire resources, especially because CaelesLuna has 9 cards left in deck. Still discounted cards in hand, which means killinallday has to be sweating that. He might not even live that much longer if any of those discounted cards or either of those discounted cards are combo pieces. So.
Demons?
Missing a couple though. Missing Il'gynoth as well as a Fellscream Blast. Though actually we're getting close to. No, I actually think we do have lethal just with an I-beam. Maybe not now.
Yeah, I needed the weapon swing as well.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, actually, no, with 0 mana Ethereal as well, he does still have it, right?
Yeah, because
it'll be 6 to 12 to 24.
Mana. Yeah. Yep. Actually, be even more than that.
I wonder.
Oh no, you're right. Because only the first, this is not a Skull discounted Moarg, this is a Raging Fellscreamer discounted Moarg.
Correct. Yeah.
So wouldn't be able to fit in a Philosophy and then all 3 Moargs. So just missing an Il'gynoth at this point. killinallday can do some damage, but still a few turns off. And in an emergency, CaelesLuna also has resources available with the second Philosophy to just go for a pretty big heal with the I-beam as he waits for Il'gynoth and probably a Fellscream Blast to be able to finish the game. Still has a Skull in deck.
Is a little bit light on card draw, it has to be said. Although there are still 2 double jumps remaining, and I believe the only other outcast cards remaining in his deck are the Spectral Sight and the Skull of Gul'dan. So he's actually about 50-50 to draw card draw this turn, even if he doesn't draw immediately lethal.
Yeah, worst draws like Throwglaive. I guess Fellscream Blast, you can lump into that situation. But again, this gives him freedom to kind of bounce back up in life total. He's got to be scared because there was that one turn that we talked about where he got the free Skull, but nothing in life is free. While it may have seemed like a free Skull, at the same time, it was also killinallday saying, well, I burn in hand. And CaelesLuna has to know that was a pretty dead turn. Saw Prize Plunder, okay, sure, but what else wouldn't have been played? Alexstrasza, Wicked Stabs. So has to be a little, at least slightly worried about the burn here, even though it's just a rank 2 Wicked Stab even for next turn as well. But how
the difficult part here for sure. Right, that is the question because, I mean, what you generally do this turn is you spend 60 seconds scrambling for a play that still leaves you with lethal if you hit an Il'gynoth top deck, while actually still healing for a responsible amount, and I'm not sure that really exists. But I think that is what Luna is agonizing about so heavily here. And yeah, you can see choosing to commit 0 Moargs on this turn, and still having that Philosophy available on the follow-up, being able to preserve that I-beam as well. And I think this is actually that nice middle ground, right? Because from this point, Luna would have to pay 4 mana for 3 Moargs, right? The first one will be discounted, the other 2 will cost 2. So then with an Il'gynoth top deck, he could do 24 still, right? With 4, 8, 16, or 32? I think he would still have lethal with a Il'gynoth top deck, so I think this has played out pretty well.
Many options.
It's always about preserving that lethal, giving yourself the outs. Kellen could go for a Skull here, but just spending the mana on the Alexstrasza, I think, is the best getting the 8 in on board, and Skull could be played next turn. You could play a rank 3 now, Wicked Stab, and then Skull trying to find maybe some missing damage.
Ooh. That is back-to-back terrible draws from Luna. The remainder of the deck is just so stacked. We talked about it before. So Skull of Gul'dan and Spectral Sight are obviously both insane outcast top decks. You just rip, you get all the way through your deck. The 2 double jumps only then draw the Spectral Sight or the Skull of Gul'dan.
It was just Immolation Aura and I guess Fellscreen Blast and Throwblade that were deck cards. More than 50% chance to draw something good.
Yep.
That turn. CaelesLuna going to have to be on a little bit of cleanup duty here. But again, it's about kind of like finding this middle ground. Like how much do you need to keep in your hand? What damage breakpoints are you going to play around from your opponent's hand? And you know, we're starting to get to the situation where CaelesLuna just has to preserve the bare minimum to kill.
Right. Yeah, at this point, I think the lethal top deck outs are kind of dead and buried at this point. It's just more about making sure you have enough total resources remaining in your deck to where you can achieve lethal, but I think even that is now starting to melt away with the amount of resources that are having to be committed to.
Yeah.
Because now the remainder of the deck is just these 2 Moargs and the Il'gynoth alongside 1 Fellscreen Blast in terms of actual straight up damage. So,
yep,
is not going to be enough.
Oh, that is 12 straight up damage. The Moargs are buffed because it was an Outcast of Philosophy. But Rogue's not really one of those decks where you can hope to like win with tempo Moargs because they have a lot of tools to kind of fight back on the board. They have small spells at least, or ways to discover small spells with Wand Thief that they could take advantage of it as well. killinallday knows that there's not really a significant rush anymore. It's just about kind of playing around the breakpoints that he knows is possible now from CaelesLuna, and then finding lethal thereafter. Just pick up Vosh Prime, Avoy Rustwix, nice 5-drop. Has Swindle, Shadow Step, and 2 Secret Passages left. So
Okay.
Going to be able to find a lot of resources, pretty much no matter what.
Agreed. On Luna's side, though, this double jump is guaranteed Skull, but the Skull at that point, even if he's able to cast it next turn, just draws Il'gynoth, Immolation Aura, and double jump, minus whichever of those cards ends up being the natural draw off the turn. You know, plus hits of fatigue, so I don't think the double jump ends up being castable here, which probably then leaves Luna in a position where he just has to push face and live for the Il'gynoth top deck.
Yeah, and then find a way to get 5 more damage even after that.
Well, the idea is, so you draw Il'gynoth, right? And then your Il'gynoth Fellscreen Blast turn clears your opponent's board, so then you're hoping that the damage that you stick deals those last few points of damage that you're short, right? You need that tempo swing to come in the same turn. So I think that's the out that Luna is playing for here, but seeing Vash Prime come down in this spot, I think he understands that that is going to spell disaster, especially with the Shadow Step Neophyte coming down again. I think this is just going to be way too much for Luna to deal with from this point.
There's an Immolation Aura left.
True.
So, getting a little glimpse of what's in store for killinallday's future. A McGurgle Prime and a Camerathat Prime. Doesn't even get to use them, unfortunately. And that's a win. And honestly, a fantastic opening hand for killinallday. Great start. Fizzled out, which gave the opening for CaelesLuna, but then Il'gynoth bottom 4. Multiple turns where an Il'gynoth top deck, or even just like some card draw, like multiple turns to be able to find Il'gynoth, multiple setup turns to be able to find Il'gynoth. Wasn't able to find it, and that's the nature of playing a combo deck where the only way you can win in many scenarios is a single card. If it's in the bottom of your deck, you're probably not going to win.
Yeah, and it's the part that's often forgotten, right? Everyone will remember that game where they queued into Demon Hunter, and there was just, you know, Skull on 5 or on 4 or something into the perfect discounts, into Il'gynoth in your top 10 cards, into you die on turn 5 or turn 6, right? But when you're playing against Demon Hunter, you don't get to experience all of those games where Il'gynoth was just in the bottom 3, bottom 5, right? Because from your perspective, all you saw was you just beat them up, right? But from their perspective, they were having a miserable time. With Il'gynoth being buried in the bottom of the deck, and that's what we had there from Luna. And it wasn't just the Il'gynoth being buried, it was, as you say, those multiple turns where it was basically a 50-50 of hitting card draw, which would then snowball into more card draw, which would then snowball into Il'gynoth, or just hitting the Il'gynoth itself. And, you know, the remaining 50% of the deck was just kind of useless removal that Luna didn't really need at that point, and that's just what Luna hit for 2 to 3 turns in a row as it got to that end game. And I think even though both players navigated the early game very well, killinallday preserving the Shadow Step to give himself multiple waves of threats, but then Luna responding to that by saying, no, you don't get multiple waves of threats, I'm just going to let your first wave hit me and then clear both of your waves of threats in one go. Kind of played around that very, very nicely. But then Luna just didn't really pick up the tools that he needed to get through the remainder of the game unscathed. And it does mean now that it's going to be killinallday, who you said is master level Demon Hunter, having to rely on this deck now as his last deck in the series to get a win with.
Yep, in the last few weeks of previous season of Grandmasters, killinallday got a what?
Oh, TJ, I'm fully on board. This is the year of killinallday because killinallday is playing acrobatics, which I'm not a fan of. That's not what I'm excited about. But he's doing it in the only acceptable way. He is not doing the clown shoes thing of playing one spectral sight and one acrobatics. I have said time and time again, you have to pick one of those cards and play 2 of them. He has done that. He's picked the wrong one, but he's doing it. So for that, well done. I approve. Year of killinallday, it is.
I mean, I'll accept it, any praise, no matter how backhanded it is, for killinallday. I see the positive, ignore the negative.
Yep.
That is the
Your
mission statement of the killinallday fan club. Embrace the positive, ignore the negative. I just made that up
which
right now. I don't
TJ
think that
is
actually exists.
the chairman and the only member of the killinallday fan club.
That's right. An official organization. Even have a t-shirt.
He's not lying. It's actually true. They do have a t-shirt.
I actually have 2 killinallday t-shirts.
Nice.
None of them were made or endorsed by killinallday.
Well, here we are.
Only a little
killinallday
awkward.
did have that acrobatics far left, which is already interesting, right? Because you could have the argument of whether that was spectral, if that was spectral sight, whether you'd be keeping it in that position, whether that would be a net positive or negative thing for you. But killinallday, having the acrobatics in his deck instead, chooses to throw it away. Luna choosing to take his time with the mulligan, as he has done throughout all of the games so far in this series, but much like the reverse of this match that we just watched, he does have that Octobot start, but currently does not have anything to be power spiking into with the Octobot, which ideally you do want in this matchup, right? You want Killen's hand with the Jandis, or you want a Kazaka's hand, or you want like a nutty field contact hand, right, to go along with your Octobot. And I know that sounds incredibly greedy, but rogue players are greedy, TJ. This is just where it leads you.
Yeah, well, when you put it that way, I'm not surprised that you consider rogue favored, because you just described 98% of hands for rogue. It's like,
Well, they all have Octobot in them, though.
you just want 28 out of the 30 cards in your mulligan.
That's right, yeah.
Just any one of the 28 out of 30 cards in your deck.
Well, 27.
way,
As long as you don't have Wicked Stabs or Alex Straza in your opening hand, you're winning.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh, no.
Ruined.
Oh, man. Oh.
well, GG.
shucks.
3-1, killinallday, I guess. Pack it up. Unlucky.
Okay. So what's the sequence for this? How greedy do you go? I know that Cold Neophyte is like, okay, save the Cold Neophyte for a skull setup turn, right? Or to protect the big board from like potential Talented Arcanist Moar clears.
Efficient is sufficient.
Is this greedy enough? Could he have gone even greedier than this?
Initiating overtime.
He could have gone greedier than this for sure, but at the same time, it just involves kind of floating 3 mana this turn because there's nothing you could have done with Foxy Fraud instead, right? Like, say he drew Swindle this turn, then maybe we can have an argument about it as to whether he can get greedy, fish for the Kazakas, fish for the Jandis, try and actually discount something powerful. But the 2 plays this turn were basically do this or do nothing. So I think doing this is a pretty straightforward winner.
Meanwhile, KillinallDay destroying all the cheap stuff. And none of the skulls, which is really the only expensive stuff, to be honest. I guess you could throw Raging Fellscream into that conversation, but that wouldn't be even that bad to just play onto the board and bank the discount. It's going to be very difficult even if he does draw a skull, unless he's playing it off the top the turn he draws it, to chew through all this hand to get it on the far left to outcast. I guess they technically are all dumpable cards, but that's a lot of the redundancy gone. I feel like this is going to have to be one of those games where you kind of got to get creative to win. You can't just rely on jamming skull that was in your opening hand on the far left on 6 and then killing your opponent on 7 because you get all combo pieces.
Yeah, and I think he does still have to plan for a skull top deck, which means he does still need to dump cards, even though he's not dumping cards for the usual reason, which is to get outcast cards over to the far left. He does still need to have enough room in his hand for a skull top deck, because a skull being drawn is still good on any turn except for this one, right? Like, he dodged it this turn, so as long as now he can keep his hand empty enough that he can play a top deck skull on any given turn, he should still be in relatively good position, because that can not only be a skull, it can also be double jump into skull and so on the following turns. But a lot of these cards in hand right now do currently replace themselves with the Chaos Strike, etc. that you've just seen. So I think once again, Killen will be weirdly hoping to not draw Skull of Gul'dan on the following turn.
Care to make a wager, friend?
No one crosses
damage.
the
Oh.
uncrowned.
This actually works out pretty nicely. Like, not only is it damage, it's also card draw, which I think is pretty important for Luna right now, because this hand is starved of basically anything to do. It needs a field contact. It needs just a Jandis to jam, right? Even though I think you know that KillinallDay is hoarding some removal based on the plays that you've seen on the other side of the board as well.
Yeah. So no Cold Neophyte going into 6. Which means that CaelesLuna has to read that it's not there.
Well, it's also not playable for 6 mana this turn, right? Because there are currently... I mean, it's not playable is harsh, but there's 9 cards in hand for KillinallDay, right? So if he was to just dump 6 mana on a skull, he would be burning at least 1 card. So I think, you know, CaelesLuna just has a read on the game state as like, Killen doesn't have a skull far left right now, right? Or else he would have done much more aggressive things to dump the hand on the following turn. So this is just a good read on the game state. This is where, you know, you graduate from just learning rules about a matchup, like play Cult Neophyte to block their skull, and actually start, you know, treating games of Hearthstone on a game-by-game basis and actually, you know, using your brain to interpret the situation correctly.
But in a way, playing the Cold Neophyte would make it then harder for KillinallDay to dump enough cards to then be able to play the skull.
That's true. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So now, Sottle, we're graduating to another level, which is way past Sottle level.
Yeah, of course.
It wasn't that big of a board to protect, I suppose.
It was not. And it also means that if a field contact was drawn, for example, then Luna could potentially go like field contact, 1 mana Neophyte, 10 woo, coin, more Neophytes, etc. Just have like this insane lockout turn. I do actually really like your point though, because even though you said it kind of facetiously, you kind of see it developing here, right? Because Killen had all his mana free on the previous turn to dump as many cards as he wanted. Even a Neophyte being played this turn would still allow just 7 mana Skull if it's in Killen's hand on this turn, right? So the Cult Neophyte actually ends up doing very little against a Skull hand from the opponent. So I do kind of like the argument of just saying using the Neophyte instead to block cards being dumped as opposed to blocking the Skull itself. It's kind of an interesting line to think about.
Yeah, I mean, I've built a casting career off of stumbling into good analysis by being a contributor.
Yes. TJ's casting is embodied by the Fry not sure if serious meme.
Well, the Cold Neophyte did work out here too, though. So
yes, it did. It did, but it cost him a whole extra 10 woo, though, right, to be able to do this.
True.
Which, yeah.
True, with a discounted 10 woo, also with an Alexstrasza and a discounted Wicked Stab with coin still. So there was like a situation for a lot of bursts. And now Cold Neophyte and 10 woo gone, but now Kills hits him with the Alexstrasza. So now it's still not really a turn that killinallday really wants to Skull. So I think from, obviously we can see both sides of this, but I think CaelesLuna, from his perspective, probably has to think, wow, I'm good. Like, I haven't given him a single turn to Skull.
If you just took this game, TJ, and just showed it to an alien that somehow had concept of what Hearthstone was, but didn't actually know what these two decks were. I'm not sure where I'm going with this analogy. They would have no idea what these two decks did, because neither of them have showed any signs of any cards that win games of Hearthstone so far. Like, they're both just kind of poodling along doing nothing. Like, Luna had a very impressive discount your hand at the start of the game, but then the hand did nothing. And killinallday is just drawing cards, all of which achieve nothing. Like, this is just a complete nonsense game of Hearthstone.
And then dumping the cards to just kill his own cards.
Yes, exactly.
What is even happening? I mean, that's if these, theoretical aliens even had eyes to see or could perceive the same things we could. True. There's a lot of questions about that analogy, Sadal, that I'm not willing to get into right now, but
there were. I'm going to be honest, it wasn't fully formed when I started speaking, and I quickly realized that it was a terrible analogy, and I just kind of acknowledged it and ran with it anyway.
Welcome to every word that's ever left my mouth.
Yes.
The last 30 years.
Very true.
killinallday is still kind of struggling to kill this 8/8.
Yes.
There's a way to kill it in hand, but it's quite expensive.
Yeah, I think struggling might be a bit of an exaggeration. I think killinallday very knowingly has just conceded to being hit by an 8/8 and isn't worried about it, right? Because we see the max damage hand from Luna on the other side with double Wicked Stab, and it's just not enough. It's not relevant. And with the amount of just expendable stuff that Killen has in hand, he knows he can just clap back and clear basically any board state that Luna can throw out here.
We're going to look for like a Shadow Step to hold on to Alexstrasza?
I think he's looking for the other Neophyte, right? Just to make this as awkward as possible. Oh, no. Oh. Neophyte Step, Neophyte, surely.
Neophyte Step Alex.
Okay.
I kind of like Neophyte Step Neophyte because Alex from hand deals 8 damage. Alex on board also deals 8 damage.
That's true.
And then Alex on a double Cold Neophyte means there's less things. Oh, I-beam. Oh.
Yeah, that's the one. It means that Killen gets to preserve the Fellscream Blast if need be here. Also, I-beam just infinitely more flexible because of the way sequencing works. Generally, the card text of the active player will go last. So because I-beam has card text, this costs 1. It costs 1, regardless of whether the Cult Neophyte has been played or not on the previous turn. So it allows him to activate the lifesteal a lot more efficiently here than using the Fellscream Blast.
Yep. Has 3 Moargs and both Talented Arcanists. So we're probably going to use... I guess he could probably use a double Moarg and the more expensive Talented Arcanist.
Yeah,
I-beam and still have enough mana to Acrobatics at the end.
Yeah, the question is whether you want to hold the acrobatics for a turn where you can take advantage of the fact that it's acrobatics and not spectral sight, right? Which I feel like if you put that card in your deck on purpose is probably something you're going to be looking to do.
Yeah. And double jump in hand means that could also get Skull going into the next turn.
That's fair. Yeah, that's true as well.
Not playing Spectral Sight, genius move, by the way. One less Outcast card, so you're more likely to hit I-Beam or Skull. Because how many times are you in that situation where you're like, and I really need I-Beam because I need Lifesteal right now, or I really want Skull because I need the discounted pieces. And then Spectral Sight comes from the double jump and you're like, meh. Okay, yeah, it's lethal. Sorry, I was on a rant.
It's a touching story, but the game and the series has just ended here. I was about to start that turn and saying the only real whiff here off the acrobatics will be the Il'gynoth, and then quickly was able to mentally correct myself. But thankfully, you were too busy rambling on about whatever you were saying, so I didn't even have to make that mistake, because drawing Il'gynoth, of course, was the best possible draw from acrobatics there, being immediately lethal on that turn for killinallday. And I'm not sure if 2021 is going to be the year of killinallday, but so far, this is certainly the Masters Tour of killinallday, as he is, as far as we're aware, the only player to have won a series in this Masters Tour so far. Prove me wrong.
Yeah, because we're just sitting here. This is the only game that we're exposed to.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure there's been like 15 salty tweets from competitive players already. In fact, they may have even been in the last 20 minutes alone.
At least 50% of our existing Grandmasters have 0-1 dropped and gone to bed.
Yeah, that's probably true. But kind of a rough loss for CaelesLuna early, but honestly, as long as he earns points this event, that's all it's going to take. So still a lot of Hearthstone left to be played for CaelesLuna. So on